Dear fellow member of Vasudev Kutum, dear fellow wave on the ocean of pure consciousness, today we shall embark on the 8th discourse in the series of remembrances of early sadhana at the GANESHPURI ASHRAM. This covers the period 1975 to 1977. Now, last time in the 7th discourse, we were going through the routine, the GANESHPURI Ashram routine that I experienced. I used to come as a weekender from the Glaxo compound in Thane, and we got up to the point of, we had reached the point where we had reached the afternoon program. We had started in the morning 4:10 Aarti, followed by the cup of tea in the dining hall, followed by the Guru Gita, which was from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. The breakfast that followed, the Seva program, which started at 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The pre-lunch chanting session, from half an hour chanting session from 11:30 to 12 with the Aarti. The post-lunch nap, followed by the, actually post-lunch there's a fairly long period of time we get from say lunch ends at 12:30 p.m. 12:30 to 2:10 the Vishnu Sahasranam program starts in the temple. So that's 1.5 hours. So part of that time I used to read a book. Later on, a library had started, but that was much later. And I used to sit in the library reading books on spiritual subjects. In particular, I found a copy of Bhagavan Nityanand's SIDDHA Gita, English translation, by the Kanhad Gad Ashram, the ashram in Kerala, that cave, series of cave, meditation caves that Swami Nityanand, Swami Muktanand's Guru, Bhagavan Nityanand, had built very near Mangalore, about 30 miles north of Mangalore. And they were publishing various books of Nityanand, translated into English. And this one, the SIDDHA Gita, the translations thereof, I found in the Ganesh, in our library, when it started. That was much later. But so I used to read books until the program, the Vishnu Sahasranam program. So immediately after Vishnu Sahasranam, there was the cup of tea available in the dining hall, followed by the Seva program, which continued until 5:30. Again, at 4:30 p.m., I think for those who had to leave early for Bombay, there was a special Aarti program also organized. So the Aarti program, which was repeated at 6:30 p.m., was also there at 4:30 p.m. And I think this was for early leavers who had to go to Bombay or something for business. That was the program. But the normal Aarti started at 6:30 p.m. and followed by the dinner program and the last program of the day, the Shiva Mahima, followed by Hare Ram, Hare Krishna chant. And that program was about 1 hour program from 7:30 to 8:30, and lights out at 9:30. So this was the complete GANESHPURI routine I experienced in the 70s, between 75 and 78. Between that time, this was the program that I experienced in the GANESHPURI Ashram. Now the interesting thing about this program was, it included 5 hours of chanting. If you count up all those artis and all the pre-lunch and post-lunch chanting programs, it all comes to about 5 hours of chanting in the day. There was about 5 hours of seva in the day, 3.5 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, 5.5 hours of seva in the day. And sleep, remember, was from 9:30 to 3:30, that's about 6 hours of sleep. And but everything was done in complete silence. One aspect of the ashram was that because all the chanting was meant to rid your mind of all the thoughts that you accumulated throughout a lifetime. And every day that you when you talk to others, you start their minds thinking, and through the law of karma, you have to think the same thoughts. And therefore, all that chanting is to rid the mind of their thoughts. And it is when the mind is free of thoughts that the divine energy you can really reap the full benefits of the divine energy, which is all over the ashram. This is known as bathing in divine energy. The bath you have is by ridding the mind of all the contamination of thoughts that it has. When the mind is free of thoughts, the divine energy has a space to rise up and cleanse the mind, and completely miraculously. It can do it in moments. So the more you chant, and Baba took good advantage of this fact by organizing 7-day non-stop chants of one particular mantra at a time. Say Om Namah Shivaya. You would, for 7 days and 7 nights, without stopping, in the temple. They would be organized in shifts. People would take it in shifts to come and keep the music alive. And in shifts, people would, when they felt like, people would chant or they would meditate. But during that time, there was no other activity going on in the ashram, no seva. Obviously, the meals and so on continued, but there was no other seva activity going on in the ashram. People went to sleep perhaps at a normal time. Some would get up, but there would be chanting going on 24 hours, for 7 days, and that was a very cleansing moment in the atmosphere of the ashram. And it was the time when people actually grew in that atmosphere of people became far more cleansed than they were in a normal ashram program. And this was the time people got Shaktipat, new people came, got Shaktipat. People who had been there for some time grew from one stage to the next stage of sadhana. It was the full expression, the full of Baba's philosophy was expressed in those 7 days chants that they have. Remember that the Yagna Mandap, along the walls of the Yagna Mandap are the verses of the Narad Bhakti Sutra in Sanskrit, the 84 verses. These are Narad Bhakti Sutra, as Narad points out, are the teachings of Lord Shiva, which Narad expounds in his Bhakti Sutra in a more poetic way. And the one copy, sadhana copy I found in Swami Madhavanand's Murli in those days, bookshelf. He had 1 or 2 books in his bookshelf. I was a translation, English translation of the Narad Bhakti Sutra. So this is the one chanting book, the one sadhana book, teaching book that I found in Swami Madhavanand's bookshelf. The one while he was practicing his rocketry. In 2.5 years he went from the standing start, 3 years counting the time when he got Shaktipat. About 3 years he went from a standing start, a normal person living a normal life in the world, to a completely realized saint. It was quite a feat. And but this is where the part of the bhakti, the chanting, the kirtan played in his progress. And I have seen that happen in other places also. I've seen other newcomers. Within a few months, they reach the stage when their sadhana becomes perfect. That means their mind has, their faces change, their sadhana becomes absolutely perfect. Their minds have evaporated in that chanting process. And all this is done in that complete silence. It is, people use sign language to talk to each other. And as I say, in Vaikunt, it is said, nobody talks, they only sing. And the GANESHPURI ashram is Vaikunt, if nobody talks. And so all talk there is totally unnecessary. People, if Baba used to write little notes to each other, wrote notes to people. He wanted to instruct people to write little slips of paper. He'd scribble a note rather than talk to them. This was to keep the atmosphere of that ashram completely pure and completely organized to be a cleansing. It's a cleansing machine. It was a cleansing. Nowadays you can only find that probably in a car wash, where cars go in one end and come out the other, completely cleansed. And that was the, if you like, the practice of the Ganeshpuri Ashram day was a kind like a car wash. You go in the morning, and by the time you come in the evening, you should be completely clean and ready for yet another day. And that is progression of such days is how people grow. And the Ganeshpuri Ashram was all about spiritual growth from one stage to the other, quickly. I don't think there's any other place on earth quite like it. Enough for today. Thank you for listening.